I want to go into a video about the difference between merely desiring something and actually embodying the thing that you want. So, something that I personally like to do is read at least 15 to 20 minutes every single day. I prefer to read more than that, but I find if I read at least 15 to 20 minutes, usually some in the morning and some at night, that I am able to think better throughout the day. And I'll explain, because reading is one of my keystone habits. It's just as important as exercise. And what I find when I read is that, because I'm reading informational content, and a lot of this information that I'm putting into my brain is basically like little seeds. And these seeds tend to sprout during the course of the day, later on that day, or maybe even days following. But these seeds grow in the mind, they flourish, they take root, and they take on a little bit of a mind of their own. And it could be days later, weeks later, something that I think about, I may have an epiphany, I may have an insight. But ultimately what happens is I get, an insight that comes into my mind. And one of the lessons that I extracted after I was done meditating, and this is really important, was that you can't find fulfillment if you are focused on your dissatisfaction. Now, some of my previous videos, if you've watched some of my previous videos, I don't have a problem expressing my dissatisfaction. Now, that could be a bad thing, because if you're expressing your dissatisfaction or focusing and being preoccupied with the dissatisfaction, what ends up happening is you can, sink even further down into apathy, or maybe even emptiness, which, if that happens, you're going down a dark path. And so this kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. I said, wait a minute. I was wrong. I shouldn't have been entertaining the thought of my own dissatisfaction. Of course, normally, it's going to cross the mind from time to time. But the whole idea is to not let it take root in the mind. So, moving even further than that, I realized I want to feel fulfilled right now. Like, not now, but right now, right this minute. I want it to emanate and radiate outward. And I want to spread that vibe to others who might be feeling a sense of lack. I want to help others open up to new possibilities the same way I want to help myself open up to new possibilities. And so I was looking in one of my notebooks, and I noticed 2 years ago, in 2022, I wrote something down. And I usually try to write things in rhymes and clever ways, make it easy to remember. Maybe I'll put it in a song or something like that. But I wrote, oneness in collaboration leads to abundant creation. Let me repeat that. Oneness and collaboration leads to abundant creation. Now, oneness, basically, it means being in harmony with everything. There's no division when it comes to oneness. You're coming from a state of peace. It's a high vibrational frequency. See, oneness, there is no static. There's no us versus them. And if you're operating from that paradigm of us versus them, you're in a place of scarcity. And when you're in a place of scarcity, it's going to be, incredibly difficult to try to manifest or, create your way out of a bad situation. So you got to ask yourself, are you in this type of mind frame? Because a lot of people are. And the detriment that often ends up happening is people always have these micro traumas during the course of their lives. They can start at a very young age, but these little micro traumas, they cause a blockage in the body, in the central nervous system, actually. And it embeds itself in the subconscious mind. So a lot of times, when people self-sabotage, they don't know the reason why they can't reach their goals or manifest or excel in life. And it's because of this subconscious blockage. It's kind of like when a tool becomes calcified, a tool that's made out of metal, right? Now that once it's calcified, it's not operational anymore. It's stuck. You can't move it. So, the best way to prevent that from happening is to keep it mobile and keep it oiled, or, make sure you take care of it. But if it becomes calcified, just like anything, there's always a solution, right? So what can you do? You can soak it in vinegar or something acidic, which will break up a lot of that calcium. You can add heat to it. You can break out the brushes and the scrapers and scrape a lot of that stuff off. But eventually, if you keep working at it, what ends up happening is you're able to restore the instrument back to its original form, and you can use it again. I believe that we're born to be free, open-minded, and curious. We tend to lose that along the way, but I also believe that the chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they're too strong to be broken. And then again, I believe that there's neuroplasticity, and there's ways to rewire the brain. And so if we don't allow the bad habits or the indoctrination to entrench itself into the mind, then we can remain free the way we're supposed to be, and we can reach our potential. It's all about you searching for your true self and finding your possibilities, finding your personal possibilities. It's about transcending through the darkness and into the light. It's also about you recognizing how far you've come instead of how far away you are. Do you want to be in scarcity or abundance? Do you want to keep a cool head under intense pressure? Do you want to be solution-oriented and resourceful? Forget about the outside world for a minute and ask yourself this. Are the choices that I'm making today leading me towards a personal paradise or a personal dystopia? Because you got to recognize as well that you're the creator. There used to be a song that said, "Cash rules everything around me." But I'll take it a step further, because your choices are the result of everything that you see around you today. And you won't see that unless you step up and take accountability for your choices. Anything is there for anybody who wants it. It's there for those who step up and take it. You have to seek if you want to find. You've got to knock if you want doors to open. You got to ask if you want to receive it, but if you don't do anything, then nothing is going to happen. And you got large masses of people where nothing is happening. I want you to think about the learned helplessness experiment. If you never heard about this experiment, Martin Seligman is the one who conducted these experiments along with this team, but you can read the book called Learned Helplessness. Now, they were doing a lot of different experiments, and this is years ago, many years ago. But one of the experiments that stood out the most was when they used dogs for their experiments. Now, they had dogs in an enclosure, but there was no top on the enclosure. And what they were doing was shocking these dogs, and all the dogs pretty much ran away from the shock and jumped out. They jumped out of the fenced-in area. Now, next thing they did was they covered this fenced-in area, and what they found was these dogs, it did not take long for them to, once they tried to get out, they quickly gave up and just laid down to take the shock over and over again. But what's even more striking is when they took the top off, and the dogs were aware, fully aware, that the top was off of the fenced-in area, they didn't try to run away or jump out. They still continued to lay down and take the shock. So this was profound, because what they also understood is that human beings also, this phenomenon happens when human beings will stay in a abusive relationship, or they may stay in a toxic work environment, or any other way that they limit themselves. And, in essence, what happens is a temporary covering of the cage causes the permanent limitation. But it's like acquiescing and the illusion becoming the reality, similar to how the tool becomes calcified and it no longer works. Now, these dogs could have jumped out of the cage at any time and got free, but they didn't. So the result of these experiments is when you think about it, people they stay in unfavorable situations because they don't believe they can get out. And the reason why they don't believe they can get out is because they don't see themselves getting out. You have to see yourself getting out. And most importantly, don't let the illusion become the reality. Because once you let the illusion become the reality, you lost your purpose, you lost your vision and your potential. So think about what happens every time you use your resilience, your creativity, and your proactive mindset. When you do that, you're taking a negative experience and you're turning it into something positive. Basically what it is, it's turning shit into sugar. And if you read Robert Greene's 50th Law, Chapter 2 is Turn Shit into Sugar. One of the best chapters in that book. But the key message in that chapter is that by facing fears and difficulties head on, you develop the fortitude and the strength to overcome difficult situations. But it's not just about overcoming, difficult times with fortitude, but it's also about taking your time back. So think about this number real quick. The number 78, because 78 is the average lifespan of the US citizen. 78 years old. So to put that into context, if you're 40 right now, that means you have 38 years left. And you basically just passed the halfway mark. So 38 years is not a lot of years on average. So you got to think about what you're going to do. Take advantage of the rest of the summer. It'll be over quick. Take advantage of the rest of this year. You don't know how many years you have left. So by being passive, it's like laying down and taking the shock for the remainder of years that you have left. You got to look at it this way. So just imagine this. Imagine that there's some entity that's rooting for you. And they want you to stop laying down to take the shock. They want you to jump out and get free. Jump out of that cage. But another way to look at it is, whatever it is that's rooting for you right now to jump out and get free, you can't see it with your own two eyes. You can't hear it with your own two ears, and you can't touch it with your hands. But it's something that goes beyond the physical senses. It's something that you feel its power intuitively. And every time you tap into and revisit that feeling, it gives you immense energy to change your circumstances and get creative. And it gives you this energy to push through. But you got to tap into the higher energy frequencies like love, gratitude, authenticity, and creativity. Because here's what's going to happen when you do that. You're going to free up more energy to attract what it is that you want into your life. And then you're going to be vibrating at a frequency that's going to attract those other same frequencies into your life. It's kind of like a tuning fork. When you hit one and you put them together, they start to vibrate each other. So instead of stagnation, or even worse, falling into a downward spiral, what you're doing is, it's like the same way energy emanates up the central nervous system, up the spine. Your energy is going to rise into abundance. And now you're going to be able to cultivate the relationships that you want. You're going to be able to tap into new ideas and new ways of making money. You're going to be able to change your physiology and let go of bad habits and attachments. So, things might be a little bit murky right now. Kind of like you're at the bottom of a deep lake and it's just grimy and filthy with low visibility. And you're just dragging yourself on this murky floor, just moving along on your every day-to-day 9 to 5. But if you just simply shake it off a little bit, shake all the grime off a little bit, and start to transcend upward, you start to swim upward a little bit. Every time you decide to go upward, the closer you're getting to the surface, it becomes clearer. You can start to see more. You might see the sun rays peeking through the water. And then, before you know it, you start to see all the clarity. You start to see the clear water. And it's a beautiful sight. And now you have more energy to swim further and further up. And what you find is that clarity. It's that clarity that you had when you were younger, before all the micro traumas. That's why I talk about doing deep breathing exercises and meditation and taking time for exercise and taking time to think creatively and putting high vibrational foods into your body and not putting, foods that are devoid of life force energy. You will tell the difference. You will see the difference when you do these things. You might be like a scavenger right now at the bottom, but if you get a glimpse of what it's like at the surface, that's like peeking through the window to where the neuroplasticity is. And you keep adding to that neuroplasticity until you're able to make the changes for the outcomes that you want to see. Because your perception is your prescription. And the reason why your perception is your prescription is because your perception shapes your experience. Basically, what it's going to boil down to is this. When you're at the end of your life, did you do everything that you wanted to do? Did you feel the way you wanted to feel? And did you take the chances that you wanted to take? And did you realize the potential that you had? Because a lot of times we don't realize how much potential we actually have. I hope you're getting the urgency in this video and it's inspiring you to get up and take action. Because my goal with this video actually is to, not only break people out of that conformity, but to also inspire them to look for their authentic self and, get beyond that imaginary ceiling that's not even there anymore. You know what I mean? And instead of laying down to continuously take the shock, I want them to jump out of the cage and get free. You can look at it like steel sharpening steel, or you can just look at it like reaching down to give somebody a hand that's on the same climb as you. We never know when we're going to need a helping hand. If we help each other every chance we get, we're going to have a much better time on this earth realm while we're here, with less regrets at the end. And so that's what true fulfillment is really all about. It's more than just material possessions and even accolades. It's something that money only wishes that it could buy. So I'll leave it at that. But just keep those things in mind.